Hello and welcome to another great episode of the Optimize Show. I am David Mamano, your host. Every Wednesday morning we have a brand new episode. And if you like them, if you love them, do us a favor. Share that love. Go on YouTube, share it, post it, whatever you can do. We're really trying to spread the good word of best practices when it comes to workplace culture and more, so that we can share all the good news going around. As I say, the high tide raises all the ships. And we really try to get some great information to you. And today, oh my God, I have a great guest to help us do that. And her name is Lorisa LaRocca. Lorisa, welcome to the Optimize Show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I want to make sure because, of course, after the show, you're going to get even more famous.
Well.
So people say Larissa, but it's Lorisa.
It is Lorisa, yes.
And in Italy, they would say LaRocca.
That's
but
correct.
here they say LaRocca.
That's right.
But as long as they're writing the checks, you'll pay.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Very good. Well, welcome to the show. I feel like I've known you forever. We joked that we were like LinkedIn friends, like forever, kind of posting positive stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's really good. And and I think you were saying it about my stuff too. So, and here we are. We met a few months ago when you volunteered to speak in my class or be a judge in my class at St. John Fisher, and we finally met for coffee. So, and you are a longtime Rochesterian.
Born and raised here.
Born and bred.
West Sider.
Just like me. I was born in Greece myself, so we share that. I think back in the day, if you were Italian, wasn't it a law that you had to be on the West Side?
I think it's still, as far as I'm concerned, it's still a law.
Gates, Greece, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I still have a lot
Maybe
of family
as far
there.
as Irondequoit.
We crossed the border. We went over the Genesee to the east side eventually, but I still have family over there. So.
Can't happen.
Yeah. Thanks for making the exception, even though
That's right.
I departed. I appreciate that. So, Larissa, you have done some great things, and I want to just start at the beginning. You went to high school here, but then you went to UB, University of Buffalo, and you decided to become a lawyer. So, tell me a little bit about that decision.
So, I never really wanted to be anything but a lawyer.
Wow.
And,
like little kid type of thing?
Yes, from the time I was little. And so kind of coming up through high school, I actually had a really, really great social studies teacher who, once I had his class, I said, this is the only thing I want to do 100%. And so I actually carried around all through high school and college, as nerdy as this sounds, a little pocket constitution that he gave me.
Wow, that sounds very nerdy. Good for you.
And so, I did mock trial throughout high school, and I just knew that was what I wanted to do.
What do you think made you want to be a lawyer? I mean, did you see like LA Law or something? Or?
Yeah, I was a big LA Law fan for sure. I like to argue, so I'm good at that. But for me, it was everything is so kind of black and white. And so that's really kind of how I got into it, thinking about it. As it turns out, that's nothing the case. That's why you have lawyers, right? Because it's not all black and white. Yeah. But yeah, it was really the only thing I ever wanted to do.
Yeah. So you went to UB, got your law degree, and then what happened from there? You got a job here locally, right?
I did. So I actually was a summer clerk at Woods-Oviatt. So kind of the way it works for law school is, kind of your first year, you take whatever job you can get, right? A lot of people waitress, a lot of people are working construction their first year. Your second summer, really what you want to do is, if you're planning to go into a law firm, try to get hired by that law firm to work there for that summer. So I did that at Woods-Oviatt, and then they made me an offer to come back when I graduated. And actually my last year of law school, I was able to commute from Rochester my last year. And so I started working at the firm earlier than kind of everybody else.
Wow.
But yeah.
It's like they recruited you even before. It's like someone playing basketball in college. They got you early, right?
They got me early. So that was great. And so I was there for 22 years.
Wow. All right, great. And it's a great firm.
It is.
It's an institution in Rochester. I mean, it's
oldest firm in Rochester.
I was going to say, it's been around since the 1800s?
1852.
1852.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So awesome. And Tony Catronio has been there since day one, right?
Since day one. One of my best mentors, yes.
Yeah, he's a great mentor to a lot of people and a great asset to Rochester. So I'm glad you were able to learn from Tony. So, and I'm sure he learned from you as well. So, so you're at Woods-Oviatt, and what became your specialty there?
So, it's really interesting. When I started out at the firm, you kind of take the job wherever there's a need. And so I came in and they put me in construction litigation and commercial collections.
Wow, okay.
I liked the construction side of it. I hated the commercial collections. And so I did it for about a year and a half. And I went to the firm at that time and I said, I hate what I'm doing. I really love the firm, but I hate what I'm doing. And at the time, I had actually gotten an offer to go to the district attorney's office. So that was kind of in the back of my mind, despite LA law, I kind of always thought maybe I'd be a prosecutor.
Yeah.
So I came to them and said, look, I've gotten this offer to go to the DA's office. I think I'm going to take it. I don't love what I'm doing. And they said, we really don't want you to leave. What if we could find something else that you'd like to do? And so I actually had worked over the summer with one of the partners there whose split was estate planning and litigation and labor and employment. And they said, he's really looking for somebody who could work with him. You know, you guys worked together well over the summer. Would you be interested? Yeah. And so that was really how it started for me. I started working with Gordon Dickens, who has been probably the #1 mentor that I've had in my career. And he really kind of took me under his wing and taught me the ropes. And I fell in love with the labor and employment side of things.
Excellent. So what does that mean to just a layperson? What would you be doing with companies?
So we work primarily with small to medium-sized businesses mostly, and anything that has to do with talent, people, and culture, right? So whether it's helping with policies and procedures, whether it's helping people work through difficult terminations or building better onboarding practices, all those kinds of things, really anything that you would envision from a human resources related standpoint. And then there's the flip side of that, which is anything that gets litigated. So if there's a lawsuit, if there's an administrative claim that's brought, that was the other component of the work that I would do.
Excellent. So really you help power HR departments at companies with everything legal, compliance, handbooks, whatever they need, right?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah. No, that's great. And so that became kind of your specialty, and you liked it, obviously, right? That you finally found like a good connection.
I did, and once I had my kids and they were young, I kind of pulled back from the litigation side of things because it's tough to have little kids at home and be on trial for 2 weeks. So I really split my focus at that point to more of the counseling aspect of the businesses on the HR side. And that's really where my focus was for the last several years.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So you were at Woodsovia for how long?
22 years.
22 years. And then what happened?
Well, so everyone knows COVID happened, right?
Yeah.
And so during COVID, I mean, businesses in New York in particular, I think were struggling every day with the changes that were coming through because they were happening so rapidly. And so I was extremely, extremely busy during COVID trying to help clients. And one of the things that I really noticed was nobody was prepared for how to deal with COVID, obviously. Yeah. But nobody was prepared to deal with a lot of things that are coming down the pike or that I kind of saw happening. And so I really wanted to turn my focus more to being proactive and helping clients figure out if we had another COVID, if we had another major issue, how would you be better prepared to deal with those things? Yeah. And whether that's policies and procedures, whether that's better processes, whether that's more training, what are the ways you can get kind of out in front of those things? Yeah. And so I decided I was going to launch my own HR consulting firm. And I was
right in the middle of COVID.
Well, right after COVID ended, So, kind of after we came out of the pandemic, I decided the more and more I thought about it, it was really something I wanted to do, and I was going to give it a shot, and so I launched Spark HR. Spark HR,
and that's incredible. Yeah, you were talking about how no companies were prepared for the pandemic, and part of when I do public speaking, one of the things I joke about is that I would love to know the company that in like the fall of 2019 that was doing their strategic planning. Right. I would love to hear the guy that said, I'm just going to throw this out there. What if there's a pandemic? Right. Shut up, John. Whatever. And I don't think that happened in any strategic planning meeting in 2019. Absolutely. Right. We were all. I mean, even in February, we were still like, what's social distancing? Right. So.
I remember in March, when right before kind of the shutdown, a couple of partners came into my office again because I was the chair of the labor and employment group, and they said, hey, so we're hearing that we might have to send some people home. Yeah. Do you think I can't imagine what that would look like? Yeah. And I remember at the time thinking to myself, what are you talking about? People are going to work from home. And nobody, including the law firms, nobody was prepared for what we had to deal with.
No, I was planning an event, a business event in April of 2020. And we got to like late February, and somebody that had purchased a ticket asked me if I would be implementing social distancing. And I was like, what is that?
Right, what are you talking about?
You know, and I think I told my friend, like, what a weirdo. Social distancing, you know? And then like, 3 weeks later, I'm like, okay, I need to be a little bit more open-minded about some of these new terms entering our vernacular, right? Yeah, very good. So, well, obviously you have done well. I mean, I want to acknowledge some of these great awards and honors, and I could take up the whole show, but I'll try. I mean, in 2022, you were listed Best Lawyers in America list, fantastic. You were listed by the Rochester Business Journal in 2021 as a Woman of Excellence. RBJ again, 2014, 40 under 40 recipient. You are the Daily Record top woman in law. I mean, this is whenever you're down, you just read through this list, right? We're at Rochester Women's Network. You were up and coming businesswoman. Again, the Daily Record, up and coming attorney. The Robert Connolly Award for Excellence in Trial Technique. So, congratulations.
Thank you. I always kind of laugh when you give a bio and people read all those things and you think like, okay. I mean, I couldn't do any of those things without all of the people who helped me be able to be successful. So.
Well, that's a sign of a great leader. So for acknowledging them. So thank you for that. It is funny. Like you create your own bio, your own resume when people read it at an event. And I'm like, oh, shucks, who wrote that? Oh, I did.
I mean, I guess I put it on there.
But no, I mean, it's what a great path. And, I'm sure your parents and very, very proud and coworkers, et cetera. So now that you have your own company, Spark HR, what are some of the things that you're doing to empower companies with the value that you bring to the table?
Yeah. So a lot of the companies that I work with are companies that I worked with at Woods. And really what I try to do is go in and help them find ways to be better. So whether it's things like looking at compensation analysis and pay equity practices and making sure that we're equitable organizations and we're getting out in front of potential legal claims.
Yeah. Prevention,
that's right. Going and trying to make
Here's how to not get sued.
That's right. Yeah. Making sure that we're doing the things that can make us be the best organization possible.
Yeah.
And so, I tell clients all the time, your people are your greatest asset, they're also your greatest liability.
Right.
And so making sure that we're doing things that can embolden your company, make it as successful, make you not have to worry about the people pieces of it, that's really what I try to do.
Yeah, and people are becoming, so much more like finally I'll say leadership is recognizing it's all about the people.
Yes.
And just think about the terms that we used to use, it used to be like the personnel department, right? And then, now HR department, right? But a lot of times you find a director of talent.
Yes.
Right? And so, I mean, talent is like, you think about like a sports team, like we're going to get the best talent.
Yeah.
And now we're bringing that into the business world and bringing somebody like you. How do we not only, make sure that they're all being treated fairly, equitable, but also maximizing performance, right? Maximizing culture.
Absolutely. And it's funny, I mean, to your point, a lot of the new kind of titles for folks who were HR directors or HR managers is now director of people and culture, director of talent and culture. And I think people are recognizing that those pieces all have to work together, and it's more than just here's your benefits form and here's your tax form and here's who you complain to. Yeah. It's so much bigger than that.
It's funny. I mean, I started my first company in the 90s, and I would talk about workplace culture. In fact, I wrote a blog in the newspaper and did a TEDx talk about it, wrote a book. And even back then, people were like, a lot of companies thought it was like a nice to have.
Right.
Well, that's cute. If we have time, we'll do that.
Think about that. Right?
Yeah. And I would be like, oh, have you heard of Wegmans? Have you heard of Southwest Air?
Right.
I mean, these are people that are companies that were putting people first from the beginning, and look what happened to them.
Absolutely.
And now it seems like there's a general consensus, like, oh yeah, the people are really the most important asset. But to your point, they're the biggest liability too, right? So people are people. Yeah.
That's right. You can't control what people do, and people are emotional. And so that's the other piece that business isn't always great at is recognizing the emotion and understanding it and dealing with it. And having to talk through and train leaders on how to have that emotional intelligence, how to build that, and why it's so important.
Yeah. Well, and I think for the first time ever, there are 3 to 4 different generations in the workforce. Yeah. Or you could have somebody who's 65 and somebody who's 21.
Right.
Right. And so the person who's 65 may say, what are these pronouns? Whereas someone who's 21, it may be very important to them.
Correct.
Right? And so try to have like a general, like an understanding from the 21-year-old all the way up to the 65-year-old, everywhere in between, right? So
yeah, I mean, the intergenerational workplace issues are prevalent no matter where you are, and that is one area where we do a lot of training and development to help all of those groups find a way to coexist in the workplace and to make the company better.
Yeah. What are some of the cutting edge kind of like new strategies that companies are bringing on board that maybe didn't exist 5 or 10 years ago? When I gave a talk a few years ago at Disrupt HR Rochester, and one of the things I learned there was that sometimes companies are saying, what should we pay you? Like they're asking, like, what do you want to make? What do you think, basically, what do you think you're worth? Like 75,000, 80,000, and letting it start with, the person being interviewed rather than offering it up, right?
Right.
And I thought that was kind of cutting edge, right? Like
yeah, so I mean, what's funny, it was cutting edge at that time, and now, of course, New York has regulated us away from those things.
Right.
Because we have pay transparency requirements now, and things where you can no longer even ask people what were they making at their last job, right?
Okay,
even internally, you can't ask people. You can't take that into consideration. So, for me, I don't know that there's necessarily anything that's like the buzz, right? Or cutting edge that we haven't thought about.
Yeah.
For me, it's really going back to the things that are tried and true that work all the time. And you used Wegmans as an example. Wegmans, I think, is really the epitome of like the best business for its employees.
Yeah.
Because they recognize the importance of employees who like where they work, who have a sense of belonging, who have pride in the organization. And despite the fact that they're always on the list of great places to work, they continue to strive to keep that and to be better. Yeah. And so I think really what makes the most successful organizations from a people perspective are those that are hungry to want to have that great culture and to keep it. Yeah. And they find all sorts of different ways to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you can't coast for too long, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I studied marketing in college, and people would say, why does McDonald's still advertise? Why does Coca-Cola still advertise? Everybody knows those brands because they want people to continue to know these brands. Someone's being born today that doesn't know about Coca-Cola, right?
Right.
Or McDonald's, and et cetera. So same with the culture is if you don't keep your finger on the pulse and keep the momentum going, it could very easily and quickly get off track, right?
Yes, absolutely.
There's forces like are I think trying to destroy it, right?
People feel that way, absolutely. They feel that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. What are some other companies that you really admire? It could be in Rochester or even nationally that are just like great best practices, great examples of having an incredible workplace culture.
I think there's places like. It's funny because they're all kind of a lot of them are grocery stores, which I think is interesting because it's hard to compete with Wegmans, especially if you're from up here.
Exactly.
But the places like the Trader Joe's and places that not only put their people first but put their values out into the community. I think that's another way of really building a great culture. And so I think around here you've got the U of R's of the world and they've really also taken the time to figure out what they need to do to try to improve their culture for their people, and especially coming out of the pandemic. I mean, everybody knows healthcare was, someplace nobody wanted to be in during the last few years, and so really taking the time to look at are there ways that we can improve for our people. I think those are the organizations that are most successful. Yeah, and people are willing to pay more for it. They are. I've never heard anybody say, I'm going to Wegmans because they're the cheapest. Absolutely. I don't think anyone has ever said that, especially lately. I walk in there, I'm like, whoa, but I still shop there. That's correct. I tell people all the time, if Wegmans doesn't have it, I don't need it. Right, exactly, yeah. I have, 2 out of my 3 kids are working there part-time during college, and they love it as well. So, very good. Excellent. Well, where do you see this industry going in the next 5 or 10 years? Do you think it's just going to continue like with new cutting edge practices, or do you think we kind of settled on things and we're going to continue just to build with what we have? I really think the pendulum always swings back and forth. Yeah. So, for instance, we went to the pandemic, everybody was remote. We came out of the pandemic, and if you listened to, every HR consultant, every employment lawyer at the time was saying, this is the trend. We're never going back. People are never going to come back to the office because everybody wants to work remotely.
Yeah.
And now that pendulum has swung kind of the other way, where you're seeing more and more businesses that are saying we really want our people back in the office because we do feel like we're losing pieces of our culture. We do feel like we're losing some productivity.
Yeah.
So I don't think necessarily that there's so many cutting edge things or new stuff that we have to try.
Yeah.
I really think it's every business needs to look at what works for you, because what works for Wegmans may not work for Spark HR or our clients. Everybody really has to look at what makes your business unique. What do your people want? What makes your culture special and great? And then really publicize that and let people know this is who we are, this is what we're about. And so for me, that's really the role that I enjoy playing the most at Spark, is to be able to go into those businesses and say, tell me who you are. Help me figure out what I can do to make you better. It may be totally different than what I just did for the client that I helped yesterday, because they're a totally different business. But let's talk about what you need and really customizing that approach.
Yeah. I remember it was a coffee table book back in the 90s. It was called Life's Little Instruction Booklet. And it was like 100 tips on how to lead a great life. And number one was a person's greatest need is to feel appreciated. And I think that's an overwhelming strategy that number one should be number one for every company. Even if it's a pat on the back.
Agreed.
Larisa, great job on that report. You're going to feel great the rest of the day. And of course, awards are nice, but sometimes it's just like sincere, gratitude for a job well done.
Letting people know that you appreciate the value that they bring to you personally, that they bring to your organization. When people leave organizations and we conduct exit interviews, it's rarely that somebody says, I'm leaving because this other company is just going to pay me more money. And oftentimes, business leaders think that that's the be-all and end-all, right? That's the reason why people leave, because somebody offered them more money. More often than not, it's exactly that. I didn't feel like I was appreciated, or I didn't see my value to the organization. Nobody showed that to me. And so if we can get better about doing those things, then I think you increase your retention.
Yep. Now, there's some study that says income is, it's only one thing, and it's up to a certain level. I think back when the study was said, it was like once someone's making, generally speaking, $70,000 or $80,000 a year, money doesn't matter that much after that, right? Which is really interesting, because you're right. Companies that they think that's what it's all about, And how many people do you know that are making, we'll say, $200,000 a year, but they're miserable, right? Whereas someone's making, $90,000 a year and they're massively happy. Who do you want to be? Very good. Well, Lorisa LaRocca, you are such a great guest, and you're doing such great things in the community. Really, really appreciate it, and excited for Spark HR to continue to blossom and grow. And I'm glad that you are in Rochester doing what you're doing here instead of another community.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Absolutely. People want to reach out to you and ask you questions, get to know you a little bit, maybe engage in your services. What's the best way?
They can go to rocksparkhr.com, and all my contact information's there.
rocsparkhr.com.
You got it.
And if you want a personal connection, I'd be happy to, throw me an email. I'll connect you. We'll do that as well. So thanks again.
Thanks again. Thank you.
Really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you, everybody. Appreciate you being here on another great episode of the Optimize Show. Every Wednesday morning, again, everybody, please stay tuned and share as much as you can. We're trying to get the word out. So again, the high tide raises all the ships. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and make sure to stay awesome.